He was an action hero, a cultural icon, a martial arts legend on the cusp of superstardom.
He moved faster than the camera could capture. He hit harder than men twice his size. He built a philosophy around the human body that changed how the world understood combat, discipline, and strength. Bruce Lee was not just a martial artist or a movie star. He was a force of nature wrapped in human skin. So when the world woke up on July 20, 1973, to the news that Bruce Lee was dead at just 32 years old, nobody could make sense of it. It felt impossible. It felt wrong. And for more than 50 years, it has remained one of the most debated, most mysterious deaths in the history of entertainment and sport. But here is the thing about mysteries. They do not stay buried forever. Scientists keep asking questions. Researchers keep digging. And sometimes the answer that finally surfaces is not dramatic, not sinister, and not satisfying in the way people hoped. Sometimes the truth is quiet, clinical, and even a little heartbreaking. Because if the latest medical research is correct, Bruce Lee was not taken down by a hidden enemy, a dark conspiracy, or a secret illness nobody knew about. He may have been brought down by something he did every single day without a second thought. Something most people consider healthy. Something as ordinary and innocent as drinking water. That is the mystery. That is the revelation. And that is exactly why this story still matters. To understand how Bruce Lee died, you first need to understand how Bruce Lee lived. From the very beginning, his life was built on intensity. He was born on November 27, 1940 in San Francisco, but grew up in Hong Kong during the Japanese occupation of World War II. As a child, he watched a city suffer. Food shortages, military control, constant fear. These early years did not break Bruce. They forged him. By the age of 9, he was already acting in films. By 18, he had appeared in more than 20 of them. But acting was never his deepest passion. That belonged to martial arts. He began training in Wing Chun under the legendary Grandmaster Ip Man in the early 1950s, and from his very first session, it was clear this was not just exercise or discipline for Bruce. It was an obsession. He trained when others rested. He practiced moves in his sleep. He studied the body like an engineer studying a machine, always looking for what worked and what did not. When he arrived in the United States in 1959, he carried that obsession with him. He began teaching his own version of martial arts in Seattle, eventually developing a completely original system he would call Jeet Kune Do, the way of the intercepting fist. He broke away from traditional styles and built something rooted in practicality, speed, and total physical efficiency. He studied boxing footwork, fencing distance, wrestling grappling, and combined them all. He was decades ahead of what the world would eventually call mixed martial arts. To maintain that level of performance, Bruce treated his body like a temple. He ran every morning, sometimes several miles before breakfast. He trained for hours each day. He experimented with protein supplements, herbal remedies, and nutritional strategies long before sports science made those things mainstream. He was fanatical about physical preparation. And central to his daily routine was hydration. Bruce Lee drank constantly. Water, fruit juices, protein shakes, herbal drinks. He believed in keeping his body flooded with fluids, especially during training and in the brutal humidity of Hong Kong summers. That habit, as it turns out, may have been the thing that killed him. July 20, 1973 began like many other days in Bruce Lee's working life. He was deep in production on multiple projects and was meeting with actress Betty Ting Pei at her apartment in Hong Kong to discuss the script for his upcoming film, Game of Death. Producer Raymond Chow had been present earlier in the day. By all accounts, Bruce seemed relaxed and in good health when the meeting began. At some point during the afternoon, Bruce complained of a headache. Betty gave him a tablet of Equagesic, a painkiller that combined aspirin with a tranquilizer called meprobamate. Bruce said he needed to lie down. He went into the bedroom, closed his eyes, and never opened them again. When he could not be roused hours later, an ambulance was called. Bruce Lee was rushed to Queen Elizabeth Hospital in Hong Kong, where doctors worked desperately to revive him. They could not. He was pronounced dead that evening. The official cause of death listed by the coroner was cerebral edema, meaning his brain had swollen dangerously and fatally. The swelling was attributed to a hypersensitive reaction to the painkiller he had taken. The world reacted with disbelief. Bruce Lee, the most physically disciplined man many people had ever seen on screen, killed by a headache tablet? It made no sense. People refused to accept it. And so began 50 years of theories, investigations, and questions that refused to go away. In the absence of a clean, satisfying explanation, speculation filled the void quickly. The fact that Bruce died in a young actress's apartment, rather than at home with his wife Linda and their 2 children, immediately ignited rumors about the nature of his relationship with Betty Ting Pei. The tabloid press in Hong Kong and around the world ran with those stories for years. Betty herself consistently denied any romantic involvement, stating clearly that she and Bruce were working colleagues and close friends, nothing more. She later said the rumors forced her to live through a nightmare for years, calling it deeply unfair to both herself and to Bruce's memory. But public appetite for scandal rarely waits for facts, and those stories stuck for decades. Other theories moved in different directions. Some pointed to the small amount of cannabis found in Bruce's system during his autopsy. British pathologist Donald Tier, who was brought in to assist with the case, addressed this directly and dismissed cannabis as a realistic cause of death. Medical science has never established a credible link between marijuana use and fatal cerebral edema in otherwise healthy adults, and that theory gradually lost traction. More interesting was a theory put forward by Bruce Lee biographer Matthew Polly in his 2018 book. Polly highlighted a surgical procedure Bruce had undergone in 1972, in which the sweat glands were removed from his underarms for cosmetic reasons. Bruce wanted to appear dry on camera and the surgery achieved that. But Polly argued that this procedure may have compromised Bruce's ability to regulate his body temperature. Without the ability to sweat normally, the human body struggles to cool itself during physical exertion or in hot climates. Hong Kong summers are notoriously hot and humid. If Bruce's thermoregulation was impaired, he may have been running hotter than he realized, building dangerous internal pressure without knowing it. The theory proposed that Bruce died from a form of heat stroke, which aligned neatly with the symptoms of headache, dizziness, and brain swelling that he experienced. Here is the part of this story that makes everything more painful. July 20th was not the first time Bruce Lee's brain had swollen. It was the second. 2 months earlier, in May 1973, Bruce collapsed on the set of Enter the Dragon at the Golden Harvest Studios in Hong Kong. He had been doing dubbing work that day. He complained of a headache, began to feel dizzy, and then lost consciousness. He was rushed to hospital, where doctors discovered he was suffering from cerebral edema, the exact same condition that would kill him in July. He was treated, he recovered, and he returned to work. There is no clear medical record of comprehensive follow-up care, no documented investigation into why a young, healthy man in peak physical condition had experienced spontaneous, life-threatening brain swelling. No long-term monitoring program was put in place. His body had sent the clearest possible warning signal, and the world, including perhaps Bruce himself, moved on. When the same thing happened again 2 months later, there was no recovery. The second time it was fatal. In 2022, nearly 5 decades after Bruce Lee's death, a team of kidney disease specialists based in Spain published a research paper that offered what may be the most medically complete explanation yet. Their conclusion was both surprising and, in retrospect, entirely plausible. They proposed that Bruce Lee died from hyponatremia, a condition caused by drinking excessive amounts of water in a way that overwhelms the kidney's ability to maintain proper sodium balance in the body. The human kidneys can only process a limited amount of water per hour. When someone consistently drinks more fluid than the kidneys can filter, the sodium concentration in the blood drops. As sodium levels fall, water is drawn into cells throughout the body, including the brain. Brain cells begin to swell. When brain swelling occurs inside the fixed space of the skull, pressure builds rapidly. The result is cerebral edema. If untreated, it is fatal. Bruce Lee was, by multiple accounts, a compulsive drinker of fluids. His daily routine included enormous quantities of water, freshly squeezed juices, protein shakes, and herbal teas. He drank throughout training, between scenes, during meetings, and at rest. This was not recklessness. It was dedication. He believed he was taking care of himself. He had no reason to think otherwise. Overhydration as a cause of death was not something widely understood or discussed in 1973, and even today it remains underappreciated outside of athletic medicine. The Spanish research team pointed to this chronic pattern of excess fluid intake, combined with the stress of intense physical training, the impaired thermoregulation caused by his sweat gland surgery, and his prior episode of brain swelling, as a convergence of factors that ultimately overwhelmed his body's ability to cope. And here is what makes this so genuinely difficult to sit with. Bruce Lee was not brought down by a rival. He was not poisoned, cursed, or destroyed by any enemy. He was not killed by a rare disease or a freak accident that nobody could have anticipated. He was, in the most painful interpretation of the evidence, undone by the very dedication that made him extraordinary. His obsessive commitment to physical preparation, the same quality that made him train when others rested and push when others stopped, may have expressed itself in a pattern of overhydration that quietly eroded his body's sodium balance over time. His desire to look perfect on camera led to a surgery that removed his ability to sweat, quietly taking away a critical cooling mechanism. His first collapse was a warning that went without the deep investigation it deserved. And then, on an ordinary July afternoon in a Hong Kong apartment, his body ran out of room to cope. The warrior did not fall in battle. The fighter did not lose to a stronger opponent. The man who taught the world to be like water was, in one of history's crueler ironies, killed by too much of it. None of this diminishes what Bruce Lee was or what he gave the world. His daughter Shannon Lee has spent years leading the Bruce Lee Foundation, keeping his philosophy of self-expression, continuous growth, and human potential alive for new generations. His son Brandon, who tragically died at 28 in a filming accident on the set of The Crow in 1993, never got to see the full weight of his father's legacy take shape. That loss compounded an already immeasurable grief. But Bruce Lee's ideas, his films, his philosophy, and his revolutionary impact on martial arts, cinema, and global culture have proved more durable than any mystery surrounding his death. The questions kept his name in conversation for decades. The answers, now beginning to emerge from careful science rather than speculation, give that conversation somewhere to finally land. He was a man who understood the human body more deeply than almost anyone of his era. The tragedy is that even he could not see what was quietly happening inside his own. The mystery is solved, but the loss remains impossible to measure.